It was a cold and rainy night. The wind was strong, and the sky was full of dark clouds. David sat alone in his small house. Watching the fire burn in the fireplace, he was tired after a long day of work. The TV was on, but he wasn't really watching it. The rain hit the windows hard, and thunder rolled in the distance. Everything felt quiet. Too quiet. David lived far from town, in an old wooden house surrounded by trees. No one ever visited him, and he liked it that way. Life had been hard for him lately. He lost his job a year ago, and he didn't have many friends since his mother died. He had stopped talking to most people. He thought he would live the rest of his life alone, quiet and forgotten. But that night, something strange happened. There was a knock on the door, not loud, just a soft, small knock, like from a child. David froze. He looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. Who could it be at this hour and in this weather? He stood up slowly and walked to the door. When he opened the door, he saw something he never expected. A small girl was standing there in the rain. She was shaking, soaked from head to toe, and wearing strange clothes. Her skin was light purple, and her eyes were big and glowing blue. She was not human, but she looked scared. More than anything, David stared at her in shock. The girl looked up at him with tears in her eyes and said in a soft voice, "Please help. My mom can't breathe." Then she almost fell from weakness. David caught her quickly, his heart racing. He didn't know if he was dreaming or going crazy, but the girl felt real, and her fear was real too, without thinking. He pulled her inside and grabbed a blanket to cover her. "What's your name?" he asked, but she only repeated, "Please. She can't breathe. Help." Her voice was full of pain and urgency. David felt a strange pull in his chest. He had no idea who she was, but he knew he couldn't ignore her. "All right, I'll come with you," he said, grabbing his coat and flashlight. The girl, still weak, led him outside. Her legs trembled as she walked, and David had to hold her hand to help her. They walked into the dark forest behind his house. The rain was still falling, and the wind was strong. But the girl kept going, like she knew the way. After about 10 minutes, they reached a clearing deep in the woods. There, hidden under broken branches and mud, was something strange, a silver object, smooth and round. Like a small spaceship, it was damaged. Smoke was coming from one side, and lights blinked on and off. The girl ran to a small door and tapped on it. It opened with a hiss, and David followed her inside. What he saw inside made his heart stop. A woman taller, with the same purple skin, lay on the floor. Her eyes were half closed, and her chest moved slowly, like she was gasping for air. "Mom!" The girl cried and fell beside her. The mother opened her eyes weakly. She tried to speak, but only coughed. David looked around and saw strange tools, glowing buttons and lights he didn't understand. But then he saw something that looked like a mask connected to a machine. He picked it up and placed it on the woman's face. Hoping it would help, the machine made a soft, humming sound, and the woman's breathing slowly became more steady. David let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The girl looked at him with eyes full of hope and whispered, "Thank you." David sat down, confused and soaking wet. He looked at the girl and said, "What are you? And why did you come to me?" The girl was silent for a moment, then said, "We crashed. We were running from bad people. My mom said someone kind lives near here. I saw your house." David didn't know what to say. This was something out of a dream, or maybe a movie. But the fear in the girl's voice was real. The pain in her eyes was real. And now, He had helped save someone who wasn't even human. Then a loud beeping sound echoed inside the ship. Lights flashed red. A voice came from a hidden speaker. Deep and strange. Warning. Location detected. They are coming. David stood up fast. Who's coming? He asked. The girl looked up, fear in her eyes again, and said one word that sent chills down his spine. Hunters. The ship was shaking slightly as red lights blinked across the walls. A cold wind blew inside through a crack in the outer wall. David could hear strange hissing sounds, like the ship was breathing. The girl's mother still lay on the floor. Weak but alive, the little alien girl was hugging her, whispering softly in a language David could not understand. David's heart was pounding. He had just saved someone who wasn't human. He was inside a real alien ship, and now something or someone was coming for them. The girl turned to David, her voice low and shaking. We have to hide. They are close. They can smell fear. David grabbed her hand and helped her mother up. Together, they moved deeper into the ship. The ship was larger than it looked from outside. Corridors were dimly lit with glowing blue lights on the floor every few steps. David saw strange symbols on the walls. He didn't know what they meant, but they felt important as they moved. The ship's voice spoke again, this time softer, warning. Energy field broken. Hunters approaching. David looked at the girl. Who are these hunters? She looked at him with wide eyes. They are not like you. They do not care about life. They only hunt and take. The mother spoke suddenly. Her voice weak but sharp. They found us before on our home planet. They destroyed cities, stole children. I was a doctor for our people. I tried to stop them. She coughed again. And the girl helped her walk. We escaped through a small portal. But they followed us through space. David was silent. His mind was racing. He had never believed in aliens, at least not like this. And now they were here, scared, running. And he was their only help. They reached a small room that looked like a control center. There were screens showing trees outside, heat maps, and moving dots. David noticed one dot blinking red. That one's close, he whispered. The girl nodded. That's them. The hunters. Suddenly, there was a sound outside, like something heavy stepping on wet ground. David turned off the screen. We need to get out of this ship. Now, the girl looked confused. But this is our only home. David pointed to the red dot. It won't be home much longer if they catch us. He helped the mother up again and guided them out. The forest outside was dark and cold. Rain still fell, but not as hard as before. David knew the woods well. He decided to take them through a back trail that led to an old hunting shed. It wasn't much, but it would buy them time. As they walked, the girl asked softly, "Why are you helping us?" David didn't answer at first. He didn't fully know the answer himself. Finally, he said, "Because someone should, and maybe. Because I couldn't help my own mom when she needed me." The girl looked at him with soft eyes. She didn't say anything, but she understood. They reached the shed after 20 minutes of walking. The place was small, made of wood and stone. Inside were old tools, blankets, and a dusty lantern. David turned it on, and the room glowed with warm yellow light. He laid the alien mother down on the only bed and gave her a blanket. She looked at him with tired eyes. "You are brave for a human." David gave a small smile. Or maybe just stupid. They all laughed a little. Even in fear, even in the cold, the girl sat beside her mother. Holding her hand, David sat near the door, watching the trees every time a branch moved. He held his breath. Then, something strange happened. The girl pulled out a small round device from her pocket. It lit up and showed a map of Earth. Then it zoomed out, showing stars, planets, and finally, a red circle around Earth. David leaned in. "What is that?" The girl's voice was calm, but serious. "It's a warning. If the hunters control Earth, they will spread fast. My mother has something they want to cure. For a sickness they created, if they get it. They'll destroy every planet like they did ours." David's mouth went dry. "You're saying Earth is next?" She nodded. "Unless we stop them." "Yes." David stood up. His fists clenched. He was no hero, no soldier anymore. But he couldn't sit and do nothing. Not this time. Not again. Outside. In the shadows of the trees, a tall, dark figure stood still. Watching, its eyes glowed faint red, and its body moved like liquid shadow. It didn't speak, it didn't blink, it just watched the shed quietly. "Inside," David whispered. "They've found us." David stood near the shed window, breathing quietly. His eyes scanned the dark forest. Trees swayed in the wind. But he knew something else was out there. He could feel it. Something was watching them, waiting. The alien girl sat close to her mother, holding her hand tightly. The warmth of the lantern made the room feel safe, but only for now. The little girl looked up at David and whispered, "They are here." David turned around slowly. "Who are they?" "These hunters you keep talking about." She hesitated. Then said, "They are called the Black Shadows. They come in silence. They don't ask questions. They don't give warnings. They just take." David moved toward the door, locking it with a wooden bar. "What do they want with you?" he asked. The girl looked down, her voice soft and sad. "My mother created something special. Something that can stop the shadows from spreading their sickness. They want it. They want her mind, her knowledge." The mother opened her eyes slowly. She spoke in a weak voice. "We were part of a group working on a cure. The shadows had poisoned many planets. They spread disease through the stars to control people. I found a way to fight it when they found out. They destroyed our cities." David stepped back, shocked. "You mean?" "These things are doing it on purpose, making planets sick." The mother nodded slowly. "They feed on fear, on weakness. They want everything under their rule." Outside, the wind howled louder. Then, a sudden sound like a branch snapping under a heavy foot. David quickly turned off the lantern. The room fell into darkness. He raised his hand and motioned for silence. The girl held her breath. David reached for the old metal shovel leaning against the wall. It wasn't much, but it was something. A low hum filled the air. A strange mechanical sound, not from Earth. The girl leaned close to David and whispered, "That sound. It's their scout." David peeked through a crack in the wooden wall. A floating black drone hovered above the trees. Its red eye scanned the ground slowly. A thin beam of light moved back and forth like a radar. It was searching, cold and patient. David pulled back, heart pounding. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "We need to move fast." The mother tried to stand, but she was too weak. David looked at the girl. "Can she walk?" The girl shook her head. "Not far. But I can help her." David nodded. "There's an old tunnel near here. It leads to an abandoned mine. We can hide there." Deeper underground, he helped lift the mother, carrying her gently in his arms. The girl opened the shed door slowly, checking the trees. The drone had moved further away, but not far enough. They ran through the forest, silent and fast. Their footsteps light on the wet ground. The tunnel entrance was hidden behind thick vines and rocks. David had found it years ago during a hike. He never thought he'd need it to hide aliens from space. Inside the tunnel, the air was cold and damp. It smelled like dust and old stones. David laid the mother down on a flat rock. The girl sat beside her, wiping her forehead with a cloth. "Thank you," she whispered to David. "You don't have to do this." "But you are." David sat down and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "I don't know why I'm doing this," he said. "Maybe I just got tired of watching bad things happen." The girl looked at him with her big, glowing eyes. "You are different from other humans I've seen in our records. You have heart." David chuckled softly. "Tell that to my old boss, then." The tunnel lights blinked once, then twice. The girl stood up quickly and pulled out her small device. A red symbol flashed across the screen. She gasped. "They've sent a signal. More hunters are landing. They know we're on this planet." David stood up, his hands turning into fists. "How many?" he asked. The girl shook her head. "Too many for us to fight." He looked down the long tunnel, thinking, "Then we don't fight. Not yet. We hide. We learn. And we find help." The mother opened her eyes again, her voice barely a whisper. "There's someone on this planet who knows about them. He helped me once. He's human." David's eyes lit up. "Where is he?" She closed her eyes again and said, "He lives near the mountains. He used to work with space tech. He believed in peace. His name is Colburn." David nodded. "Already making a plan. Then we go to the mountains. And we bring this Colburn into the fight, outside the tunnel." In the sky above the trees, a massive ship hovered silently, invisible to the human eye. Inside it, creatures of shadow and metal watched their screens. A human face now appeared on their radar. Marked as a threat, the hunt had truly begun. Asterisk, the tunnel was cold, dark, and deep. David lit a torch and held it high. The shadows on the walls moved like ghosts, but he kept walking behind him. The alien girl helped her mother, who leaned on her for support. Each step was slow, each breath heavy, but they had no other choice. The hunters were somewhere above them, searching, hunting, waiting. David had used this tunnel once before when he was young. It led to an old mining site that had been closed for years. No one came here anymore, not even animals. That made it the perfect hiding place for now. They reached a wide chamber filled with broken wooden beams, rusted tools, and old crates. David cleared a space and laid out 2 blankets he had grabbed from the shed. He gently helped the alien mother lie down. Her skin was pale, and her breathing was weak again. The girl knelt beside her, her eyes full of worry. David sat beside them. "We need to help her now, or she won't make it," he said. The girl nodded and pulled out a small metal box from her pocket. It opened like a flower, glowing softly. Inside were strange tools, small blue vials, and thin wires that moved on their own. "She needs this," the girl said. Holding up a glowing vial, "It helps her lungs breathe. But I need power to activate it." David looked around. "Power? There's nothing here. This place hasn't seen light in decades." The girl paused, then took out a round silver device. She tapped it twice, and a tiny blue screen appeared in the air. "This can charge it," she said. "But I need a clean metal surface and something sharp, like iron or steel." David grabbed an old mining lantern and broke it open. Inside, he found a steel rod and a metal plate. He handed them to her. "Will this work?" She smiled for the first time. "Yes, thank you." She quickly connected the device to the metal. Sparks flew, and a soft hum filled the room. The vial lit up brighter, and she injected it into her mother's arm. A moment passed, then the mother took a deep, full breath. Her chest rose and fell evenly, and some color returned to her face. The girl sighed in relief and looked at David. "You saved her again." David shook his head. "No, you did." "You're stronger than you think." The girl sat beside her mother and leaned against the cold wall. "I'm just scared. I'm not a fighter. I only know science." "Machines?" David looked at her seriously. "You don't have to be a fighter to be brave. You stayed calm, you saved your mom, and you're still standing." "That's enough." She smiled again, small but real. "What about you? Why are you alone in the forest?" David leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I lost my mom. She got sick real fast. I tried to help, but the hospitals were full. I was too late." The girl touched his hand gently. "I'm sorry," David nodded. "I was angry for a long time. I pushed everyone away. But now, maybe this is my second chance to do something right." They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the dripping water and the wind outside the tunnel. Then the girl pulled out a small cube and tapped it. A hologram appeared floating in the air. It showed the Earth, spinning slowly. Then it zoomed out and revealed a network of red dots spreading across space. David leaned in. "What is this?" The girl's face turned serious. "It's a map. The red dots are where the black shadows have taken over. They move from planet to planet, like a disease." She tapped again, and a small green light blinked on Earth. "This is your planet, still safe." But not for long. David stared at the map, his jaw tight, so they're planning to take Earth next. The girl nodded. "Yes, but they can't do it openly. They need something first, my mother's cure. If they get it, they'll make sure no one can fight back." David stood up and paced. "Then we can't let them have it. We need to find this man Colburn your mom talked about, the mother." Now able to speak better, said softly. "Colburn was once part of a secret human space project. He believed in peace between species. When I worked on the cure, he helped me test it. He lives far in the mountains now, hiding from the world." David grabbed his bag. "Then that's where we go next. We rest tonight. And we move at first light." Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the tunnel, a high-pitched pulse. The girl's device flashed red. They've scanned the area. The shadows know we're still on this side of the forest. David grabbed the shovel again. "If they come, we're ready, but tomorrow we find Colburn, and we end this before they end us, outside the tunnel." In the sky above the woods, the hunters adjusted their course. Their ship turned slowly, heading toward the mountains. The clock had started, and time was running out. The morning came cold and quiet. A pale light touched the edge of the tunnel walls as the sun rose outside. David didn't sleep much. He kept one hand on his shovel, listening for sounds in the dark. The alien girl had finally fallen asleep beside her mother. Curled up in a blanket, David watched them for a moment. Something soft growing in his heart. He didn't know what to call it, but it was the first warmth he had felt in years. He stood up, stretched his arms, and walked to the tunnel entrance. The forest looked calm, but he didn't trust it. The black shadows could be anywhere. Hiding, watching, waiting. He had seen war before. He had smelled the air before danger struck. And now that same feeling had returned as they packed their few supplies. David checked the map the girl had shown him to reach Colburn. "We have to pass through the old industrial zone," he said. "There's a shortcut through the metal yards. It's risky, but it's faster." The girl helped her mother stand, who now had a bit more strength in her legs. "We're ready," the girl said. "Lead the way." They moved fast, but carefully. The forest thinned out, and old broken buildings came into view. Huge metal arms, rusted cranes, and piles of scrap surrounded them. This was once a busy steel factory. Now it was just dust and ghosts. David walked ahead, scanning the area. Memories rushed back into his mind. This place was part of his past. Years ago, he had worked security here after leaving the army. He remembered the smell of oil, the shouting of workers, the heavy boots on steel floors, but one memory stood out more than the others. He paused near a half-broken wall. Running his hand over it, the girl noticed. "You've been here before," she said. David nodded. "Yeah, a long time ago, I was a guard here." Before everything went wrong, the girl tilted her head. "What happened?" David looked away. "One night, there was a fire in the lower tunnels. 2 workers were trapped. I was ordered not to go in. Said it was too dangerous, but I went in anyway." He took a deep breath. The pain still fresh in his voice. "I pulled them out. But I got blamed for breaking protocol. They fired me, made me look like the bad guy after that. I stopped trying to help people." The girl was quiet for a moment, then said, "You saved lives. That's what matters." David gave a small smile. "Thanks, kid." Suddenly, a sound echoed through the yard like metal being crushed. David pushed the others behind a wall. "Stay low," he whispered. He peeked out and saw a black drone hovering nearby. "It's red." I scanned the area slowly, clicking and humming. Then it paused. "Like it had sensed something," David whispered. "They're searching the factory. We have to move now." They crept along the broken buildings, hiding behind metal sheets and broken trucks as they reached the edge of the yard. A loud voice echoed through the air. "Human 47. Identity, David Rains," the voice said, cold and mechanical. "You are now marked for capture." David froze. "They know my name." The girl looked up at him, fear in her eyes. "How do they know who you are?" David shook his head. "I don't know. Unless..." He looked around, scanning the sky. Then he saw it, a black disk, floating above like a shadow. A hunter ship, small but deadly. It had scanned him while they were hiding in the tunnel. Now it was following him, not just them. "We need cover," he said. This way, he led them to a maintenance hatch hidden behind a pile of scrap. It opened with a rusty creak. Inside was a narrow ladder leading to an old fuel tunnel. As they climbed down, the girl asked, "Why did it call you Human 47? David stopped for a moment, then said, "It was my code name during a secret mission. Years ago, a mission that had to do with something. Not human." The girl's eyes widened. "You've met aliens before?" David nodded slowly. "Once, it was covered up. The government made sure no one knew, but now, I wonder if the shadows were involved even back then." They reached the bottom and walked through the tunnel. Water dripping from above, David's thoughts were heavy. Something inside him was waking up. Memories he had buried deep, strength he had forgotten he had. "I didn't think I'd ever matter again," he said softly. "But maybe this fight. Maybe it's what I was meant for." The girl smiled. "You're not alone now," from above. The hunter ship hovered silently, its scanners now fully active. Red lights mapped every movement underground. Inside the ship, one of the shadow beings whispered, "Human 47. Activated, the past had found him again, and now the real battle was coming." Asterisk, the sun was hidden behind thick clouds, and the air felt heavy. Like something terrible was about to happen. David, the alien girl, and her mother had taken shelter in an old fuel station just outside the industrial zone. The place was dark and dusty, filled with broken machines and empty shelves. They locked the doors, covered the windows, and tried to stay quiet. The girl sat beside her mother. checking her pulse with a small, glowing device. "She's stable for now," the girl whispered. "But she still needs more time." David stood by the door, holding a metal rod like a weapon. His body was tense, eyes sharp. He knew they didn't have time. The black shadows were getting closer. A sudden noise outside made David freeze. It was a low hum, like a machine starting up. Then the sound grew louder. A strange vibration passed through the ground. David peeked out through a crack in the wall. His eyes widened. A hunter ship was landing. Just beyond the trees, black and silent, with sharp edges that looked like blades. 3 figures stepped out, tall and thin. With armor that moved like liquid metal, their faces were hidden under dark masks, and their eyes glowed red. They moved without sound, scanning the ground as they walked. "They're here," David said, his voice tight. "No more running." The girl looked up at him. "We can't fight them. Not like this." David shook his head. "We don't need to win. We just need to survive long enough to escape." He searched the room quickly and found an old emergency battery. "Wires and a box of nails. Help me," he said. "We're going to make traps," the girl nodded. She understood fast. Together, they rigged a wire trap at the door. They placed sharp metal scraps under windows. David poured oil on the floor near the entrance. "When they come in, they'll slip. And we strike." He said. The mother opened her eyes weakly and whispered, "Be careful, they can move faster than you think." David gave her a small nod. "I won't let them touch either of you." Moments later, the silence broke. A loud crash echoed as the front door burst open. One of the hunters stepped inside, tall and silent. The trap snapped. Metal wires shot forward and wrapped around its leg, pulling it sideways into the oil. It slipped and hit the ground with a loud bang. David didn't wait. He jumped forward and hit it with the rod. Sparks flew. The hunter hissed and pushed him back with strange force. It stood again, faster than anything David had seen. But its leg was damaged, and it moved slower. Now a second hunter entered through the back. The girl threw a bottle of fuel at it. The fire caught and spread across its chest. It screamed a sound that felt like glass breaking inside the ears, then crashed into a wall. The third hunter was different. It didn't enter. It stood outside, watching. Its eyes focused only on the girl's mother. She saw it and froze. "It's the commander," she whispered. "He's here for me." David stood in front of her, panting, bleeding from his arm. "If he wants you, he'll have to go through me." The hunter commander raised his hand, and a strange weapon formed out of his arm. It charged with a blue light, aimed at David, but just before it fired, a loud noise came from above. Helicopter blades. The sky filled with dust. And a large ship appeared. It was human-made, white and silver, with a symbol on the side and old space agency logo. A voice came from above, loud and clear. "This is Colburn. Stand down or be destroyed." The commander hesitated for the first time. Then he stepped back slowly, disappearing into the shadows. The remaining hunters vanished, one burning, one limping. They didn't speak, didn't scream. They just disappeared like ghosts. David stood still, breath heavy, heart pounding. The girl ran to him and hugged him tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "You protected us." He hugged her back. "I promised I would." The ship landed near the broken station, and a man stepped out, tall, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He wore an old uniform and carried a strange rifle. He looked at David and nodded. "You're David Rains." "Human 47. David raised an eyebrow. "You're Colburn?" "Yes," the man said, "and we have a lot to talk about." Behind him, 2 people rushed forward with medical kits and scanned the alien mother. One of them whispered, We've been waiting for her. She has the cure." David stepped back and looked at the girl. She smiled through her tears. "Maybe this fight isn't over." David looked at the rising sun. Then back at the sky. "No," he said, "it's just beginning." The ship landed gently near the clearing. Dust blew across the ground, and the engines slowly powered down. David looked up at the tall man standing before him, Colburn. The man the alien mother had trusted long ago. Colburn had a sharp face, a calm voice, and eyes that had clearly seen too much war. "We don't have long," Colburn said. "The shadows will return, and next time, they won't hold back." David nodded. "Then we need a place to hide, not just run. A place they can't break into." Colburn looked over his shoulder. "I know one. Follow me." They traveled deeper into the mountains, leaving behind the broken factory and smoke. After 2 hours of climbing rocky paths and crossing frozen streams, they reached a hidden valley surrounded by cliffs. In the center stood an old underground research base, long abandoned, half covered in vines and stone. "This was once a secret project site," Colburn said. "Built to survive nuclear war, no one remembers it now." David looked around. Impressed, the place was quiet, sealed with thick steel doors and buried power cables. "Can we fix it?" he asked. Colburn nodded. "With your help and her tech," he said. Looking at the alien girl, "Yes. We can." They got to work for the next 3 days. David, Colburn, the girl, and 2 of Colburn's old teammates rebuilt the base. They cleaned broken walls, reconnected old wires, and powered up backup generators. The alien girl helped by connecting her glowing tools to the power grid. Her small fingers moved fast, and sparks danced from her devices. One of the human engineers whispered to Colburn, "She's smarter than most adults I know." Colburn smiled. "She's more than that. She's the future." While they worked, David trained the girl every evening. He taught her how to use tools, set traps, and read maps. He showed her how to listen for sounds in the dark and how to stay calm when afraid. She listened carefully, never forgetting a word. One night, while sitting by a small fire inside the base, the girl looked at David. "Why are you teaching me all this?" she asked softly. David stared at the flames. "Because if anything happens to me, you'll need to lead. You're stronger than you think, and one day, others will follow you." She didn't speak, but her hand reached out and held his. She was no longer just a scared alien child. She was learning to be something more. The alien mother was healing slowly. Her skin was brighter, her breath stronger. One day, she walked out of the medical room and stood beside David. "Thank you," she said, "for protecting her." "And me," David nodded. "She protected me too." But peace didn't last long. On the 4th night, an alert rang through the base. Colburn checked the radar screen, and his face turned serious. "They found us." Red lights flashed on the map, 3 ships approaching from the sky. But this time, the base was ready. David activated the shield wall. Colburn loaded the pulse rifles, and the alien girl pressed buttons that lit up the floor with energy lines. Traps were armed, doors locked tight. "This is our last safe place," David said. "We don't run anymore." Outside, the sky grew dark, not from night, but from the hunter ships blocking the stars. Their engines made no sound, but the fear they carried was loud. The lead hunter stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the base from afar. Inside, the alien mother touched a crystal pendant hanging from her neck. It lit up and projected a message into the air, a map. Not just of Earth, but of space, with glowing lines leading to other hidden bases. Others like them, waiting, watching. She turned to David. "If we win here, we can light the fire for others. We're not alone anymore. David looked at the glowing map. Then at the girl. Then we fight. Not just to survive, but to start something bigger. Suddenly, the girl's device beeped fast. A new signal came through weak, but real. It was a voice. Broken and scratchy, but clear enough. Dad, it's me. I'm alive. The girl gasped, her eyes wide. It's him. My father. He's alive. David stood frozen. Where is he? The signal grew louder, and a set of coordinates appeared. Deep in the stars, far away, but reachable. The girl turned to her mother, who nodded slowly. He must have escaped. They didn't get him. David looked at Colburn. Then we have 2 jobs now. Hold this place. And find her father. Colburn checked his rifle. Then we better not lose tonight, as the shadows prepared to strike again. Deep inside the base, something new was being born. Not just a defense, but a family, a purpose, and a future worth fighting for. The air inside the hidden base was filled with quiet tension. Red lights flashed low along the floor, signaling that the defense shields were still active. But all eyes were on the hologram floating in the center of the room. It showed a star map with a blinking light far away. The voice had been faint, but real. Dad, it's me. I'm alive. The little alien girl stood frozen. Her hands shaking slightly. Her heart pounded. Her father, long thought dead, was alive and calling from across the stars. David stood beside her, his face serious. That signal came from deep space, he said. A prison zone, maybe? Or a hidden system. The mother walked slowly to the map, her eyes full of memories. He was taken by the shadows during the last attack on our city, she said. We thought he died. But if he's alive, they must be holding him for something. Colburn leaned closer. Studying the signal trail, this wasn't just a message, he said. It was a warning. He's in danger. And he's trying to lead us to him. The girl looked up at her mother. Why would they keep him alive? He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't part of the cure. The mother paused, then took a deep breath. There's something I never told you. Something I hoped I would never have to say. David and the others stepped back. Letting the moment settle, the mother looked at her daughter with soft, sad eyes. Your father wasn't just a teacher. He was the last king of our people. The girl blinked in shock. King. The mother nodded. Our world once had leaders chosen not by blood, but by wisdom and service. Your father was chosen during the last days before the shadows came. He tried to keep peace, to make deals, but the shadows didn't want peace. They wanted control. David rubbed the back of his neck. So, your daughter is a princess. The girl frowned. I don't feel like a princess. Her mother smiled gently. You are more than that. You are the last hope of our people. That's why they chased us. That's why they want me on now, you. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Colburn stepped forward. That changes everything. If the shadows are holding her father, they might be using him to draw you out. David looked at the map again. It could be a trap. But we can't ignore it. He risked everything to send that message. The girl clenched her fists. Then we go, we find him, and we bring him home. Her mother touched her shoulder. It won't be easy. That place is far, and the shadows will expect us. David nodded. Then we prepare. We don't walk into this blindly that night, while others slept. David sat beside the girl near the base entrance. The stars above were cold and silent. But one of them held her father. Do you feel different now? He asked her softly. She shrugged a little. I always wondered why I felt strange. Why I knew things others didn't. Now I know why. But it's scary. David nodded. Truth usually is. She looked at him. Do you think we can really get him back? David looked into the stars. I think we can try. And that's what matters. The next day, the team began planning. Colburn gathered maps and scanned long-range signals. The girl worked with the engineers to upgrade the ship. They would need speed, stealth, and strength. David trained every spare moment, his body stronger now. His mind sharper, the mother gave the girl a crystal key. This belonged to your father, she said. He wore it always. It unlocks the royal vault. And something else, something ancient, inside the crystal was stored knowledge. Old codes and secrets from their people. It might be the only thing that can stop the shadows, the mother said. But it must not fall into their hands as the day ended. The girl stood in front of the small crowd, humans and aliens alike. We're not just fighting for one life, she said. Her voice strong and clear. We're fighting for freedom. For the future, for all who are hiding. Afraid, David stood beside her. Proud, she had grown so much. No longer just a child. She was a leader now. A spark in the darkness, Colburn pointed to the stars. Your father is out there. And the shadows know we're coming. Let them. They should be afraid. The group prepared for launch. The base would stay hidden, guarded, but their mission had changed. It was no longer just survival, it was rescue. It was rebellion, and somewhere far away. Locked behind walls of steel and shadow, a man opened his eyes. He smiled weakly and whispered, "Come find me." The stars outside the ship moved like slow rivers of light. David stood at the front window, staring into space. His hand rested on the cold glass, and his mind was quiet. Ahead of them was the final mission to save the girl's father and end the shadow's control. Behind him, the alien girl checked her tools. Her movements fast and focused. She wore light armor now, custom-made, powered by her people's technology and David's training. Beside her stood Colburn, watching the ship's path through a blinking screen. We're getting close, he said, signals stronger. But so is the interference. David nodded. They know we're coming. The girl looked up, her voice calm but steady. Let them. I'm not afraid anymore. They had traveled for 3 days through silent space. Flying low and quiet, staying hidden, the base back on Earth was still safe, shielded and guarded by Colburn's team. The alien mother had stayed behind, too weak to fly. But she had given her daughter one last message. Find him. And remind them who we are as they neared the dark moon where the shadows kept their prison. David checked the weapons to pulse rifles. One plasma shield and a surprise he had been building. It was small, handmade and dangerous. A memory bomb designed to release every image. Every memory of the shadows' crimes into the galaxy if they were caught. Either we win, he told Colburn. Or we make sure the whole universe sees what they've done. The ship landed on the moon in total silence. No wind, no sound, just darkness and stone. They moved through the black rocks, guided by the girl's glowing map at last. They found a door built into the moon's surface. Guarded by 2 shadow sentries, David moved like a ghost. His soldier instincts fully awake. He motioned to the girl count of 3. On his signal, she threw a light pulse. Blinding the guards, David rushed forward. Taking one down with the shield, Colburn hit the other with a stun blast. Fast, clean, no alarms. Inside the halls were cold and silver. David felt the weight of the place. This wasn't just a prison. It was a lab. One room had cells, another had machines draining light from crystals. One crystal showed a frozen Imagon alien city being destroyed by the shadow's fire. The girl stopped and stared, tears filling her eyes. "That was my home," she whispered. David touched her shoulder. "Not anymore. You have a new one now." They moved deeper until they found him, her father. Locked behind a glass wall, weak but alive, his eyes opened slowly. And when he saw his daughter, he smiled. "You came," he whispered. The girl ran to the glass. Her hand pressed against it. "We're getting you out," but just as David stepped forward to open the lock, a voice echoed through the chamber, cold and dark. "You should have stayed on Earth." The Shadow Commander appeared, tall and full of dark energy. His armor rippled like liquid shadow. He raised a black weapon that hissed with blue fire. "You brought the key to me," he said. "Now I can end your bloodline and take the cure." David stepped between the commander and the girl. "You're not touching her," the commander laughed. "You think a human can stop me?" David smiled. "No, not just a human with nothing to lose." Then he threw the memory bomb at the wall. It exploded with light, thousands of voices, screams, faces. Cities, everything the shadows had destroyed played in the air. The commander screamed, clutching his head. "Make it stop." The girl ran to the lock and used her crystal key. The glass melted away, and her father collapsed into her arms. Colburn fired at the lights above, causing the system to fail. Darkness covered the halls. And they ran outside. The ship waited. They climbed aboard just as more shadows chased them from the base. David fired one last pulse to break the landing zone. The ground cracked, and the shadows fell back. Screaming, the ship blasted off, leaving the dark moon behind. As they flew, David sat beside the father, who looked at him with tired eyes. You're just a human. Why did you risk everything?" David smiled. "Because your daughter knocked on my door and said her mom couldn't breathe." The old king laughed softly. "That's enough of a reason." Back on Earth, when the ship returned, people came out to greet them. Humans, aliens, fighters, farmers, they all stood together, waiting, cheering. The girl stepped down with her father beside her, and the crowd bowed in silence. Her mother cried with joy as she embraced them. Both. David stood in the back, quiet, watching. But the girl turned and called him forward. "This is the man who saved me," she said. "He didn't have powers, he didn't have a crown. He just had a kind heart." People whispered his name, David. The human who stood against the darkness. David, who became more than just a man. He became a legend, and somewhere in the stars, the shadows now feared the one thing they never understood. Hope carried by a human holding nothing but courage.